Welcome to Let's Talk Salud, Dinero y Amor. This show is a very special show. We are calling it the History of Hispanic Heritage Month. The History of Hispanic Heritage Month. We usually come to you on Saturdays at 8 o'clock in the morning. Today, we are coming to you at 11 a.m. Thank you for joining. We have a very good show today. I have a good number of guests today, and I'm going to show them to you right now. Look at them. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our show. How are you doing?
Hello, everyone.
Let me start just in kind of the way I'm looking at them. It's Alex Juarez from AARP Arizona. I have Frank Barrios, our historian in the Phoenix area. Thank you, Frank, for joining.
Thank you.
Raul Aguirre, periodista, locutor y empresario de Tucson, Arizona. Raul, thank you so much for joining. And then Dr. P. Dimas, I believe you live in Tempe, but you're probably right now up north. So thank you so much for making time to join, Dr. Dimas. Thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, I hope the connection works.
Yes. And Julie Gallego from Tucson. Julie, thank you so very much for joining us.
No, thank you for inviting me.
You basically saved us because we wanted to have more women on the show, and you were the only one who were able to join. So thank you so much. You saved us.
Oh, yay. Thank you.
Women are busier than men.
Right. Well, and let me just say that Hispanic Heritage Month is an amazing, an almost mysterious thing because, I mean, we have about a month to celebrate, and it seems to me like celebration happen here and there sporadically, but it doesn't seem to be like a cohesive thing, big events, etc. Maybe here and there, but we're trying to change that. We want to coordinate the efforts of the celebrations and really heighten the spirit of this 30 days. Dr. P. Dimas is going to share with us the history of how this day came about. I also want to say that we have 4 videos from, one is from Superior, Nogales, the Phoenix area, and the San Luis, from the 4 folks who helped us to record a short message about Hispanic Heritage Month. So it'll be a good show. I would like to start right now by asking Alex Juarez. Alex, would you mind telling the audience why this is important to AARP and what is AARP doing in this month-long celebration of Hispanic heritage? Take it away.
Happy to do so, David, and welcome to all of our guests. We are here with very distinguished guests across the state of Arizona, and also to all of our viewers on Facebook that follow us, and hopefully that will be watching the video afterwards. We welcome you, and we want to say Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. So AARP at a national basis and AARP Arizona, we're very excited to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th. And there's a little something going on there, as you know, for about 6 months called a pandemic that has really changed the way that we do things on our daily lives. And that has prevented many of the celebrations that normally take place during Hispanic Heritage Month. So that's why we're not out there in public along with everyone else. But that'll change. That'll hopefully in the near future, we're going to be able to do that again. But we have to take our precautions with this pandemic, make sure that we follow the CDC guidelines. So AARP has had to pivot. We've had to do a lot of our in-person events, now virtual type of events. And we kicked it off on around September 15th, 16th, we launched it. We sent out a postcard that many of you probably received in your mailboxes. And this postcard basically just has the information of some of the virtual events that we're going to be doing. Obviously, this is one of the first events that we have, the history of Hispanic Heritage Month. Then we have an ABC 15 town hall that will take place on October 1st with host Liliana Soto and myself and 2 other guests, one from Juan, Arizona, it's Montserrat Arredondo, and then we also have Luis Avila that we will all be providing some of the facts and issues the Hispanic community has to go through the election process. And then finally on October, correct me if I'm wrong, David, is it the 8th that we have
The 10th, October
the 10th,
10th.
I'm sorry, October 10th. It's a Saturday, Music Memory Lane. And you've got to wait for this one because I'm not going to give you all the details on it, but you've got to tune in on AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection, 8 p.m. at 8 p.m. at night. And it's going to be a fun music memory lane type of trip that we're going to enjoy. We have some surprises prepared, so I'm not going to spoil them just yet, but great things. We also have, we launched some newspaper ads with a few of our leaders, and we have one of our leaders that we are highlighting in Tucson. And David, if you can just show, if you can show the picture of Raul Aguirre, our own friend, Raul Aguirre, that's going to be showcased in a newspaper ad. The campaign that we call it Entrelazados, estamos entrelazados. So we are joined, we're interjoined here. So we're very excited to launch this campaign, just highlighting some of the leaders in the state of Arizona. There's so many great leaders that it's impossible to highlight all of them. But we highlighted a few of the leaders that we have, and we're so excited to have leaders in this show today that have such wonderful, rich history. So with that, David, I'm going to turn it back to you. These are just a few of the things that we are celebrating in Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you. We are ready for Pete Dimas, Dr. Dimas, to relate to us the history of Hispanic Heritage Month. But before we do, Dr. Dimas, let me play a video from a veteran his name is Robert Hernandez, and he recorded the following video. Here he goes.
Hi, I'm Robert Hernandez, past commander of the American Legion, Tony F. Sosa, Ray Martinez, Post 41. I am a 34-year U.S. Air Force vet, served during Vietnam and Desert Storm. This month-long celebration gives us the opportunity to find recognition for all the contributions that Hispanic have made to this country. Hispanic veterans have enlisted to protect this country from the days of the Civil War to the current time now, battling terrorism. On returning to our country, we find ourselves with a different struggle, a need for social and political change, to enjoy those equalities that we earned as veterans and Hispanics in this country, and be able to continue on to be a part of this country. On returning back, the veterans needed a foundation in order to address the social and political changes that contributed to discrimination and segregation. Post 41 provided that. It provided us a place to celebrate our culture. It provided a place to organize and address some of these changes that were needed to be addressed. Hispanics in the military serve with great pride, at times with a great cost, as many lost their lives. To date, over 61 veterans of Hispanic descent have been awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. And it's with great pride that many of us can sit back and say that our brothers have accomplished that. It is with great pride that many of us that served in the military are able to come back now and depict stories, provide support, and help those less fortunate. I ask all of you to enjoy this period of time, this month-long celebration. Do it safely and do it proudly. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you.
All right.
Wow. Raul, you have to make a comment here. I can see that you were nodding your head. Just briefly, before we hand it over to Dr. Dimas.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that was part of it because, we have served since the very beginning of the War of Independence. A lot of people don't know that Bernardo de Galvez was right there fighting in the War of Independence of the United States.
Yeah,
that they founded Galveston and all those. A lot of people don't know New Orleans has a Galvez town and Houston. So I'm glad that he brought that up, especially I think particularly with Vietnam vets that suffer, I think, the most discrimination because it was a turbulent time, and I'm glad that he brought that up because here we have the Cosillo in Tucson. We have the Cosillo post, which is right on Barrios Hollywood, and I think again, as always, we found our way to continue to honor ourselves and with dignity and with pride.
Thank you so much, Raul, for that comment. Dr. Dimas, please help us understand then how this all began, this month-long celebration. Take it away, please.
It's a long story. Just as Raul said that the veterans have been involved from the time of the revolution to the present. I might add that my dad was one of the people who organized at the very beginning of post 41, World War II vet. But I'm an historian, and so I look at things perhaps in more universal, then bring it back to the particular. Our society, we have a mutual contract here called the Constitution, and it's a product of the Enlightenment, the idea that we have a social contract, that we use science and observation to adjust to realities, and understanding that change has to come. When the founders wrote the Constitution, they realized that they were going to try to form a more perfect union. They knew they didn't have it yet, and that's why they decided they put in something that would allow them to continuously change with the times. That's called the amendment process. And it was so out of skew at the very beginning that they had to change it 10 times, the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights. So now we've had 27 changes to that, to our mutual contract. Now, in order to be part of the mutual contract, you have to be part of the whole story. You have to basically be able to be recognized as being part of that society, that story, in order to maintain or get the full benefits of that mutual contract. And so that's the importance of having an understanding of what your story is. Now, that I call that the shared myth. It's not like Aesop's fables. It's how we tie ourselves together. Now, if you're part of this, that myth, understand that you also have an underlying philosophical connection or principle that keeps you in line. For example, the Spanish Empire was held together with the idea that the king dispensed justice in the name of Jesus Christ. So you could operate within that. In our society, I think our underlying philosophical principle is really tied in with the Pledge of Allegiance, the idea of liberty and justice for all, particularly for those who are part of the shared story, the shared myth. You see, that's the important aspect of it. And so it's a function of historians to basically weave these various disparate stories into that shared myth. So, you know, like I said, if you're not part of the myth, anything can be done to you. And this is basically why Hispanic Heritage Month became important. For example, in Arizona, as Raul understands, it was created and it was built by people of Mexican descent. You know, and it was clear to everybody before the arrival of the railroad. But when the railroad comes, you get this crowd of people coming in. They remove the Mexicano from the shared myth, and to the point that you have political irrelevance for the most part. And so, even from the very beginning, you have the Mexicano leadership in Tucson making sure that the story remains, so that you know the relevance is there. And they're part of the founding of what becomes the Arizona Historical Society. And if you take a look at the mission of it, was to tell the story of the history of Arizona, the Southwest, and northern Mexico as it relates to Arizona history. So that connection is always there. And they had a good reason for this, because you have this onslaught of people coming from the outside, diminishing the value, and then it becomes really obvious in the 1890s when you have a depression. And the usual story is here. When the depression isn't there, you know, you Mexicans, come on over. You have a good life here. Yeah, but when things get bad, hey, you outsiders, leave, you know. And so you have this depression in the 1890s, which forced, and you have the KKK equivalent in Arizona at the time, especially in Tucson, where even European immigrants are considered Americans, but Mexicanos, native born, are considered foreigners. And so you get together and you form a mutual aid society called the Alianza Hispanoamericana, which is basically making sure that you get people together, let people know that you're part of the structure, and you're organized. Now, this sort of process, because we're not part of the majority anymore, is continued throughout the state. In the Phoenix area and Tempe area, you have later on the formation of the Liga Protectora Latina, which is fighting for worker rights, especially in the mines, and also for bilingual education so that people can maintain their dignity and still be part of the process, part of the society. And so you have those things happening, but since you're not part of the main story, what you can do, you end up being brokers of political participation. And basically the role of the brokers to get jobs for the community so that you can get some of the benefits of the government. I mean, you know, to give you an example, my grandfather got a job with the city of Phoenix in the 1930s. And I asked my dad, well, that doesn't sound right. How did he get a job? And he said, well, he was part of the Latin American Club, which was another mutual aid society dealing with politics in the 1830s. So we have these things going on, always trying to deal with this, trying to get our story out so that we're part of the whole game. And then comes World War II. Now, Robert really told us, you know, what happens after World War II. The veterans come back, they organize, they challenge and force desegregation in public facilities and in living conditions. And members of Post 41 actually are involved in lawsuits to desegregate schools. So you have this process taking place. And so you have this, and not only getting involved there, but actually getting people elected. For example, in the Phoenix area in the 50s, you have Adam Diaz elected to city council for the first time. And he's a member, by the way, of Post 41. And, you know, the organization that takes place. So you have this happening. And then we fast forward into the 50s, the 60s. You have the television coming in, which means the story gets out more. And one of the ways that you can see this happening is with the civil rights movement, where that story is getting out. And by connection is the Chicano movement that's part of this whole process. You know, this is our story. We have our rights. We've been here. That sort of aspect that we have. And so you have a lot of them are sons and daughters of the World War II vets becoming part of the Chicano movement. Now, there's another thing that happens, especially in 1960, because here's where it becomes politically important to start recognizing the story that's always been there, but hasn't been well told. In the 1960s, you have this guy, by the way, he comes from Tucson, Carlos McCormick, who's working in Washington, and he gets involved with the Kennedy campaign. And it helps that Kennedy's a Catholic, and at that time, most Mexican Americans were Catholic, and it still goes for that matter. But he comes up with the idea of, hey, let's get all these organizations together to exert political power and push for Kennedy. And that's what happens. I mean, the Alianza Hispanoamericana is also part of these, as well as the GI Forum and all these organizations that have been springing up, especially after World War II. And guess what? They make a difference. And you don't think these national politicians are going to start understanding, oh, we better pay attention to these people? And so let's move forward to 1968, which gets us actually to the Hispanic Heritage Month. In 1968, you have Lyndon Johnson, who desperately wants to get his vice president elected, Hubert Humphrey. And so, and at the same time, you have a Californian by the name of Richard Nixon, who's running for office. And what you have is politicians who are rooted in the community, like Ed Roybal in Los Angeles, who comes from a Northern New Mexico family. They push forward a resolution to develop Hispanic Heritage Week. Now, understand, they want that week to be in September. Now, Roybal comes from California. You have some people from Texas involved. And part of that resolution, I'll read it for you, it deals with whereas 7 of our states, Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, Nevada, New Mexico, and Texas, and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico have Hispanic backgrounds. And then so they push forth, and Johnson signs it, and he issues the proclamation, the very first one in 1968. And I'll read the beginnings of this so you see where he's going with this. It says, "It is with special pride that I call attention of my fellow citizens to the great contribution to our national heritage made by our people of Hispanic descent, not only in the fields of culture, business, and science, but also through their valor in battle." You know, so here we have that value, that undeniable contribution that's coming there. So every year from 1968 on, you have this annual proclamation, and you know you're not going to forget this because you understand in the House of Representatives you have elections nationwide, and then you have the presidential elections, and so you have this happening. And then by 1988, you have another presidential election. Oh, by the way, I might add that one of those sponsors for that legislation in 1968 was George H.W. Bush from Texas.
Right.
So in 1988, we have another election. Guess who's running for president? George H.W. Bush, right? And so, you know, he's going to be supportive. You have, again, local politicians coming forth, such as Representative Esteban Torres from California, pushing for Hispanic Heritage Month, you know, a whole month to include, because we're starting to have people from other parts of the hemisphere coming in, playing significant roles. You have the uproar over the Contras, and you have, you know, all kinds of things taking place. And interestingly enough, you have a senator from Illinois pushing for this, Paul Simon from Illinois. Now, you know, some people don't understand that, especially Mexicanos have been part of the industrialization of much of the country. And at that time, Chicago had more Mexicanos Chicanos than Arizona. And so, you know, that's an important political consideration. The president is Ronald Reagan from California, and George Bush is running. And so we have National Heritage, Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's extended to October 12th, which is Dia de la Raza, which includes all of Latin America. And by the way, in Spain, it's called Dia de la Hispanidad, which, you know, you don't want to be left out of this whole celebration. You want to maintain your connection. You know, there's still economic connections there, you see. So you have this National Heritage Month that comes to fruition in 1988. 1989, George Bush issues that first national proclamation. And so now you have, you know, it geared towards Hispanics or Latinos or Latinx or Chicanos or Puerto Ricanos or Chilenos. You know, you got it all covered, right?
Right.
And so, but in the Southwest, it's primarily about Mexicanos.
Right.
You know, make no mistake about it. And it's a national push to basically bring that story that's important in order to be part of the national myth, in order to, you know, people have to be careful about not including you in that national, you know, that mutual contract. And besides that, with a whole month, you can sell a lot of stuff geared to people, right? So that's my introduction to this story.
Amazing history, Pete. I liked what you said. It's a national push to be recognized as being here, but we've always been here. Thank you so much. Before we proceed with our show, I would like to show our second video. Here it goes.
Hi, my name is Mila Besich. I'm the mayor of Superior, Arizona. My family has been rooted here for well over 4 generations. And this month we are excited to be celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month in our community. For decades and generations, our community has celebrated our Hispanic culture by hosting the annual Fiestas Patrias at the St. Francis Catholic Church and our car show. This year we were unable to host it, but we are ready and waiting to have it again next year. Our community is proud of our Hispanic heritage, with many generations of family members dancing in the baile folclórico Alma de Espíritu. We proudly have our children learn the rich traditions and cultures of our community. Many of our local restaurants are family-owned and celebrate the Hispanic cuisine. We welcome you to come and visit Superior and learn more about the Hispanic culture, our traditions, and our heritage. You can do this by visiting the Curandero Trail at the Boyce Thompson Arboretum, visit our local restaurants, and participate in community events. We are always proud to showcase our rich Hispanic art, dancing, and other activities. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Beautiful video. And now let's go to Frank Barrios. He is a historian in the Phoenix area. Frank, tell us the history, the pride, the contributions more at the local level. And then we're going to go to Raul and Julie Gallego to tell us about the Tucson experience. Bear with us. I will get to you in just a bit. So take it away, Frank.
Thank you very much, David. I wanted to thank AARP for presenting this show. It's important because the contribution made by the Mexicanos in Arizona is huge, but yet very little is known. Mainly what's the old saying, winners write the history, and the history of the Mexican people have been left out, and what you're doing brings it back. So thank you very, very much. I think in the beginning, I'll talk about the history of Phoenix, where I'm the most knowledgeable about. And Phoenix was started 20 years after the war with Mexico. It was not a city that was part of Mexico, 20 years after. But soon after it started, the population of Phoenix was close to half Mexicanos, Mexicans, Mexican Americans, that were living in Phoenix. And the Mexican contributions were great. There was many very wealthy individuals, Mexican, most of them were coming from Mexico. And probably one of the most famous was Enrique Garfias, the town marshal. His life reads like Wyatt Earp's, but yet nobody even knew that he existed until recently. And recently there's an individual who wrote a book on the history of Enrique Garfias. And again, these have all, for whatever reason, not been shown. And there's so many things, like I said, in the early years, the Mexican community had a strong voice in Phoenix. Then came the railroad, as Pete mentioned, and then people from the east and the south started began coming into the Phoenix area, and the Mexican community went from being almost half of the population to being a minority. And immediately laws were passed English only, and all of a sudden these people wanted Phoenix to look just like where they came from. And it didn't take long. In the early part of the 20th century, you had people like Pedro de la Lama, who started organization La Liga Protectora Latina, founded by Pedro de la Lama. He's the man with the white jacket there, to protect Mexican businesses. There were laws being passed against them. And these were loyal Americans with businesses. And again, they were now being transferred from being half the population to being a minority. And there was a lot of discrimination that occurred over many, many years after, in the turn of the century. And really, I think what you've got to say is the major input to fighting discrimination and segregation came after World War II. Pete and Raul touched on it, is that there were a lot of Mexican Americans who died in World War II, suffered, and came back to find that they're not allowed to live where everybody else did. And Post 41 did a lot to stop the discrimination. Another group after World War II is the Phoenix Mexican Chamber of Commerce. In the late 40s, they started, and again, to stop the segregation. This all came about after World War II to change what had been occurring for so many years here in Phoenix. And with that also came entertainment in the Phoenix area. Preciado is on the left, and then La Voz Mexicana, Dial 860, and of course there was Carlos Morales, La Voz de Don Carlos, they called it. And that was KLY, one of the largest stations here in Phoenix. And again, Preciado was, he'd bring in Mexican entertainers from Mexico that would perform here in Phoenix. You recognize Lola Beltran, and the individual on the left, I don't remember his name, but he was a Mexican movie actor also. And he continued to bring these folks into, we had the Orpheum Theater, Aguilar family visiting with Humberto Preciado. But he had, and interesting enough, some of the entertainers started in Phoenix and became famous in Mexico. To tell you how strong the Mexican community was here in the Valley. And again, here's another one. This was at Calderon Ballroom. Arizona Governor Sam Goddard with Jose Alfredo Jimenez next to him.
That is amazing.
And the other one, Frank, his name was Alberto Vasquez. He was the rock star
right.
with Enrique Guzman. Big.
I knew he was a big star, but I couldn't pick up his name right away. So thank you, Raul. But again, Phoenix, Calderon Ballroom had a lot of famous folks coming in. Then there was Adam Diaz. Pete mentioned that he was the first elected Phoenix City councilman, born in Arizona, and his raised his family here. Wonderful individual, and he died a little after his 100th birthday. So he lived a long time and loved by so many people, and again broke that barrier to be the first elected city council person. And of course, we take a lot of pride in Arizona Governor Raul Castro. Here is members of LULAC, League of United Latin American Citizens, meeting with Governor Castro. He was the first elected Latino to be governor of Arizona. Hopefully many more will follow. And again, this is in Edward Pastor was the first elected national Hispanic congressman from Arizona. There were two others that tried for the position. Roberto Riveles tried and failed. Joe Eddie Lopez tried for the congressional and failed. But Ed Pastor, again, you keep trying, eventually you win. And our first congressional elected person was Ed Pastor. And there were others. Also, we have Mary Rose Wilcox, Alfredo Gutierrez, Joe Eddie Lopez, all of them served elected positions representing the Hispanic community, representing everybody. And they were, and again, you come back to today. 2020, we now have two elected congressmen that represent Arizona, Raul Grijalva and Ruben Gallego. And maybe that will have some additional ones coming up in the future. Again, that's a very quick summary of where we've been, how we got to where we are, and hopefully it's a very bright future for the Hispanic community. We have a lot to be proud of, and never hold our head down, because we built Phoenix, we built Arizona, a major part of it in every aspect, whether it was in business or in the field working. The Mexican individual, the community did a lot to move this state ahead, and we have a lot to be proud of. And again, one more time, thank you, AARP, for presenting this, because this story needs to be told to everybody, especially those that are coming in from somewhere else and they don't know our history. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank. And Alex, you have got to say something. You're nodding your head too much.
Wow.
Go ahead.
I'm just impressed, with everything that Dr. Dimas and Frank have said so far, and I can't wait to hear what Julie Gallego and Raul have to say. But I'm learning a ton as well. I agree with many of the comments that we are seeing on the page, on Facebook page. This needs to be told. Many of our young Latino students and the population in general need to know all the great contributions that Latinos have done, and in particular the Mexican community. Latinos have been here in the United States even before the Pilgrims arrived. So the Spaniards arrived in St. Augustine. So we are part of this community. We are part of this country. So great to hear these. I'm very excited to be part of this conversation.
I really hope that in the very near future we can do a Spanish show very soon before Hispanic Heritage Month is over. We have to kind of do the same kind of show, but in Spanish. Before we go to Julie Gallego and Raul, let me play our third video. And this comes from Patty Molina from Nogales, Arizona.
Hi, I'm Patty Molina. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, coming to you from Nogales, Arizona. There were many times in the past when it was easier to cross the border. Everyone went into Mexico on September 15th and normally stayed up all night until El Grito to celebrate. There were parades that would cross through both sides of the border without any issues. Now, it has mainly been our Mexican consulate locally that has continued this tradition of the traditional Grito de Independencia de Mexico. This year, the celebration took place on September 12th at the Consulado de Mexico. They celebrated the 210th anniversary in Nogales, Arizona. In reality, post-World War I, Cinco de Mayo was the first Hispanic heritage event that was celebrated most often and still continues to this day within our community. The diversity within the same culture is very attractive to myself and to many. Our rich flavor in foods, rhythm within our souls, and the rich history and how Hispanics have evolved by overcoming many obstacles and have had many successes is wonderful. The language is beautiful, and it is so adaptive in many areas. Our border Spanish is very unique, and you can always tell when someone is from here.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now let's ask Julie Gallego from Tucson and Raul Aguirre. I would like to start with Julie because she hasn't said much today. And please try to help us understand this history, festivities, pride, as it is experienced, lived in the Tucson area. Take it away, Julie.
Okay,
Julie, can I
great.
say something before you start? Because I know Julie for 50 years. She is a treasure of Arizona. She's a cultural contributor. She has been she has taken her group to the Olympics twice, representing, Arizona and Chicano and Latino culture. And to me, I am so proud that she accepted to be on the show because she's not only a friend, but she's taught my kids folklorico dancing. She's been involved with the Mariachi conference internationally. I mean, a real treasure when you guys, the historians, you guys were talking about sometimes not knowing the history. Here is a piece of living history who's done just amazing things. I wanted your audience to know that. Julie, take it away.
Thank you, Raul. You are too sweet, too kind. Thank you. And thank you, ARP, for inviting me again. Well, I was so excited when I was listening to Frank Barrios right now, just say the beautiful history of Phoenix. And actually, for 15 years, I did a show called Viva Arizona that did a history of Tucson in the Hispanic perspective. So like you're saying, if it's not written in the books, we don't hear anything about it. I thought it was very, very important to have school time matinees where we had over 10,000 children attend these school time matinees. And we gave, through the same thing that Frank just did, the PowerPoint presentations of the history from the 1700s to present time. We gave the history of the Hispanics, starting specifically in Tucson in the 1800s. And then, of course, as we moved on, we went more nationally of what the Hispanics have done for the United States. And what was so beautiful is we did it through music and dance. And the thing is, with our Hispanic culture, when I do the history of the early 1800s here in Tucson, and I saw the families that were living in here, they were so intelligent, they were so educated, they were wealthy. A lot of them had money. They came from large ranches, and I mean, they weren't, you know, what mostly the majority of people would think, these poor Mexicans living here in Tucson. And I would love to join forces with Frank Barrios, because I think it's important that since we have history before Phoenix, to merge it together. The Hispanic population has to know really about Tucson's history too, because we were in politics. You know, we kind of see Phoenix has had to struggle a little bit more than what we had, because when the Americanos came here, we already had everything in place. We had our government, we had our schools, we had our hospitals, we had everything already because of the wonderful families that lived here in Tucson. And I'm fifth generation. My family was from Sonora and from Tubac. So like when you say they crossed, you know, the border, I'm kind of that same situation. And also my father served in the Air Force. So I was born in Austin, Texas. So I lived that dual life of, you know, my father listening to Frank Sinatra and listening to Pedro Infante, you know, those type of stories. So yeah, so when I made Viva Arizona, I was able to represent the show as a Mexican American of all the contributions we have given to the United States, living both cultures. And so then eventually that show evolved into music, because when we got to the 40s and 50s and 60s, just like Frank said, we had our beautiful ballrooms, Casino Ballroom, Del Rio Ballroom. We had so many. And, you know, for us Hispanics, we're all about family. We're all about celebration. We're all about, you know, our wonderful food and coming together, you know, for the Fiestas Patrias there at the Casino Ballroom. They used to crown the queens. We had beautiful orchestras playing beautiful music. So in my Viva Arizona, my show kind of went to 100 years of Hispanic musical memories. Me and my father, Ralph Gonzalez, interviewed all the orchestras. They were 70s, 80s, really 80-year-olds. They gave us beautiful pictures, and we were able to educate Tucson community about, you know, just our beautiful history of entertainment. And then when I was probably in 1972, when Metro was getting started, all these things, the Hispanic Heritage Month was happening, they started bringing bands and folklorico groups from Mexico to play like in the parks, like Santa Rita Park. So I remember I was 12 years old and my parents took me to the fiestas, and I saw this band from Sinaloa playing banda music with a big tambora drum, folklorico dancers, vigorous Sinaloa dancers. I saw that and said, "Oh my God, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be." And so my mom said, "Well, we got to find a folklorico group in town." And the Charos, the Asociación de Charos here in Tucson, were the only organization that we kind of knew that had a folklorico group. And I'm saying all of this is because this is so important for the youth. If they don't hear the mariachi music, if they don't see the folklorico dancers, how are they going to be inspired and say, "Oh my gosh, I want to do that," and continue our culture and our history? And so sure enough, that's how I got started. We would dance at chariadas out on the dirt. And for those of you that know, chariadas are rodeos, and we would go dancing with the mariachis. And then I was, you know, very, very blessed to get able to do this as my career, my passion. And then I was so blessed to meet the Elias Entertainment that were based out of Phoenix. And Elias Entertainment Production under Juan and Francisco Elias produced in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas International Mariachi Festival. And all of us from Tucson and Phoenix, the folklorico dancers and the local mariachis, would go perform with the greatest mariachis in the world, Vargas, Camperos, Sol de Mexico, all the greatest stars in the world. So I was very blessed to be a part of that for 25 years. And then we started the Arizona Mariachi, Arizona Christmas Mariachi Festival at the U.S. Airways. And so Phoenix just embraced the Mariachi Festival. And I can't leave out Tucson because they're one of the very pioneers that started this. I truly believe that what Tucson did here with the mariachi conference here really took mariachis to a whole other level, just like you were saying. Some people here became big stars. I think the United States made mariachis what they are today because our raza here just love the music. We crave it. And we made it, so wonderful, along with Linda Ronstadt. And then we honor all the time Lalo Guerrero as far as entertainment here, the father of Chicano music. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I am so proud to be a Hispanic. I am so proud to be able to live my passion, to share it with the community. Like Raul said, we have danced in London. We have danced in New York. We have danced throughout Mexico and Arizona. I was on the Arizona Commission of the Arts, where I went to so many schools in Scottsdale, everywhere, Mesa, Phoenix, and I taught. And it was just so wonderful because we were just sharing our culture with children, and they're our future. So I just hope after this pandemic is over that our mariachi children it's like a family. They are playing every weekend. They give entertainment to our communities. They're ambassadors. Our Puerto dancers are ambassadors. And I can't wait till we're able to share our beautiful, beautiful culture with our communities again. So thank you very, very much for having me here. It's been such a great honor. Thank you.
Jolie, what a testimony of how the contributions and the way people feel that the passion of who they are and the pride. Thank you so much. Raul, it's your turn.
Could I say something before Raul starts?
Yes, go.
He did the same thing before.
Right.
Julie's mentioned something about getting together with Frank to kind of share the space between Phoenix and Tucson. Well, I'd like to make a comment on that because I wrote a book on the land grab by the city of Phoenix west of the airport. And so it was a major event in Arizona. And then Lydia Otero at the U of A wrote a book on La Calle, which is about the Tucson's land grab of the Barrios there in Tucson. And the funny thing about it is that even though both of us wrote books about the similar thing, neither one of us knew that the other one was doing that because we live on opposite sides of the Great Wall of Picacho, where it seems like there's a dividing there
Yes.
that has to be broached in a big way. And I just want to make that comment.
Yeah, and I agree.
And real quickly, I'll get together with you after the virus hits, and I will cross the Gila River into Baja, Arizona, and work with you.
That's good.
Come on down. Come on down.
Thank you.
Yeah, I told you that Julie has a great story. I'm a big fan of hers. I think her contributions are amazing. But as cultural contributors, we've also been advocates. I was a broadcaster when we launched, and I was at the founding with many people of the International Mariachi Conference, who to me is an educational movement, because I've done concerts for a long time, but my main participation there was trying to work with the educators, because when we got mariachi into the schools, as Julie was mentioning, that's when it became a national movement. Imagine that in Tucson, Arizona, the first international mariachi conference, academics plus entertainment come together through the arts. We did it like 6, 7, 8 years before they started doing it in Guadalajara. Obviously, mariachi is, from Jalisco, but we started the very first mariachi conference internationally with an educational component, not just concerts, but education. Becky Montaño, who was an assistant superintendent at the time, with Garcia, who was the superintendent, was able to get the curriculum going. And you cannot imagine, and we don't have time for me to explain to you what a struggle that was to talk to music teachers about mariachi. Even corporate people will say, "Oh, well, yeah, that's for a party," and I go, "No, it's operatic, it's historical, it's ours, and it's the great music." Luisa Ronstadt started the first orchestra in the Southwest here, in Tucson. part of the Ronstadt family. It was Linda Ronstadt's great aunt. When you look at Lalo Guerrero, the father of Chicano music, people don't know that La Canción Mexicana that every mariachi plays was written by Lalo Guerrero in downtown Barrio Viejo in Tucson. A beautiful contribution. So when I look at Tucson as a hub of culture, I was also the founder of the Norteño Music Festival. So talking about bringing Norteño music, Ramon Ayala, Michael Salgado, mixing Tejano with, Chicano with Mexicano, and doing it successfully, where we created a real nice hybrid mix that has been happening here, since the beginning of time. When you look at that, we had Esteban Ochoa, who was the first Chicano mayor, if you would, in the 1800s. He was also the president of Wells Fargo Bank out of Tucson. When you look at La Sociedad Mutualista Porfirio Diaz, who created Julie, you mentioned it, the little dancing place,
the Rio?
The Rio, and the other place down by the Casino Ballroom. It was called actually the Sociedad Mutualista Porfirio Diaz. And then El Casino Ballroom was founded by Latin American Social Club, which is Butch Martinez and their people got together, and they were veterans, and they were going, we're not going to be put out of our lives. We're going to be successful. We're going to make it the hub of the community. We're going to keep our traditions and create new traditions. So like the Mariachi Festival has created an educational legacy. Norteño music out of the city of South Tucson created that mix between Chicanos and Mexicanos, creating a lot more unity. And then we did the Tejano Music Festival, which I started with Chicanos por la Causa as well, and ran for about 28 years. So, dicen que la cultura cura, right? La cultura cura. And it's true. We have so much culture, so much mobilization in the arts and the history of Southern Arizona. And that includes, we included Nogales and Douglas, bringing what I call Bordeño power, to us. And when we were talking about broadcasting in particular, which is my area in many ways, I've been really involved in the creation of the first bilingual multicultural radio station in 1976. That later on, we called it here the Barrios Rhythm Machine. And then we took it to Phoenix, and we call it La Firme, which was there from like 1977 to 1979. A lot of, that's where you get now the Manic Hispanics and all those people. It's a big legacy, really, of pride. And also that we were talking about bringing information that was critical to Raza, right? I started that movement in broadcasting, and I'm going to say his name, Gustavo Magru, and I founded, recreated Mecha at the U of A after Raul Grijalva and Salomón Valdenegro had been kicked out. So, they went, knocked down on the president's door, and they said, ¿Sabes qué? Vámonos, you're out. So they ended up being out. So in 1975, we create Mecha again, and we create Mecha statewide. And from there, you have, the eruption of groups like, Chican Indio and Mars, out of those student groups, with Sarco Guerrero and his wife Carmen out of the Phoenix area. So we put together Tucson and Phoenix in the arts a while back. And I always say that, I don't know if you know that Michigan and Michoacan means the same thing, right?
I did not know that.
I'm going to tell you, Google it. So anyway, Michigan and Michoacan means the same thing. It's the place of the great lakes and great pescadores, great fishermen. So I always say, from Michigan to Michoacan, like the monarch butterfly, we have been here since the beginning of time. And I think people need to understand that right now more than ever, because of what we're going through at this junction, that the power of the Chicano people, and I want to also bring it back, not just the Hispanic part of it, which implies more of a Spaniard, more of a Spanish thing, but our indigenous past. We live in Tucson in the Tohono O'odham land. We live in Tucson in the Yaqui, Pascua Yaqui lands. And sometimes we don't acknowledge the fact that the University of Arizona, who is a land-grant university, is based on borrowed land from Tohono O'odham people. So it is very important that that we create not only this great pride, but it's an inheritance. And I wanted to mention also that anybody remember the decade of the Hispanics?
No.
In the 1980s, Madison Avenue discovered the power of consumerism by Latinos, right?
Yeah.
And they created the decade of the Hispanics. And I remember I grew up in South Tucson. I was cruising down on January 1st, going for some menudo at a Chinese barrio, tienda store, TNT market. And then I saw this billboard and it said, "Welcome to the decade of the Hispanic." And I went, "Orale, what is that?" So when I got my menu, I went back to my mom and I said, "Mom, there's some Hispanic people coming. I don't know who they are." And my mom goes, "¿Qué Hispanic ni qué nada? Somos mexicanos." So it's an interesting thing, right? That now the purchasing power of Latinos as a whole is, more than $1 trillion. But that's a lot of this recognition came through the purchasing power of the Chicanos and Latinos in particular, including even the different identity changes that we've gone through. Remember, we used to be Mexicans of Spanish descent, right? And then we were Mexican Americans, and then we were Hispanics, and then we were, then the Chicano movement came in and said, "Chale, chale, chalecos," like they used to say, and caló. And then they changed that, and they said, "No, we're Chicanos because of the indigenous past." That's why I was saying that, for your audience, I was saying broadcasting from the mythological land of Aztlán. Aztlán is a beautiful concept that was created in the Plan de Santa Bárbara by the Chicano movement, by the poet Alurista from Colorado, to create that continuity and togetherness of people of Mexican heritage and people involved in civil rights, and bringing them all together. So all those concepts are really critical. That's why, as the past chairman of the Chicano Studies Community Advisory Board of TUSD, that's why we ended up suing some of your notable proponents of doing away with ethnic studies. Someone wrote on your show, "This is why we need to support ethnic studies." Cultural relevant and cultural responsive, curriculum is critical across the country. One of our own Pueblo High School Southside alumni is now leading the New York educational system, and he's also a mariachi, Richard Carranza. So it's no accident, right? Achievement. That's why I said la cultura cura. All this history, all these decades of struggle. Somebody asked me one day, "Raul, so what is la causa?" And I said, "La causa is the daily struggle that we face, all the time." And they go, "So when is it going to stop?"
Who knows?
Right? And you go like, I don't know. You got to ask them, because we're still in this struggling phase, but with so much future, so much positivity. I think the growth that we have experienced, where I'm involved in a movement also through the Southwest Leadership Initiative, a nonprofit that my wife and I started with Mr. Mares out of California, to create the new generation of young leaders, which is Ivy Leagues. I love ASU, I love U of A, I love NAU and all the state universities across the country. But to go back to what you were calling the mutual agreement, and also what you were calling the basically the national myth, right? We need Chicanos in Harvard, right? And I know we have a famous one, Mr. Navarrete, who is the most decorated, most syndicated
writer,
journalist. he wrote a book, a Chicano at Harvard, a while back. So we are beginning to occupy so many important spaces. I am so excited for the younger generations because I think they're being bolder in history. Your rich culture and history makes you, I think, stronger, bolder. And this is why it's important that across the country, we must continue to advocate for cultural education, ethnic studies, culturally relevant curriculum, and pedagogy, because we are about to inherit America, and we have a bright future for America because we have been Americanos longer than America has existed.
Raul, thank you so much. Go ahead, Alex.
David, can I just ask a real question? The quote from Michigan to Michoacan, what was the rest?
I want to copyright it, but here it goes.
I think you need to.
From Michigan to Michoacan, like the monarch butterfly, we have been here since time immemorial. And that means all of us here and all of our children and grandchildren.
Let's go to another video from someone in the Yuma County area, Emma Torres.
Hi, my name is Emma Torres, and I want to wish everyone a happy Hispanic Heritage Month. So I'm so proud to be Hispanic and to be in our Yuma County community, serving our community and celebrating our identity and our heritage. There's so much to be proud of, and we should be teaching our young ones so they can carry on the generation of celebrating our Hispanic, heritage. In Somerton, San Luis, and Yuma, we celebrate in diverse ways with our community. We celebrate through our beginning of the agricultural season, and we also celebrate by teaching our youth about our heritage and doing diverse activities that will carry on the information they need to have so they can understand their who they are and how important their identity as Hispanic is. So I wish you a very happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
Amazing. Let me see if we have lots of good messages on Facebook. We are nearing the end of our show. I just wanted to say, we can just go on and on. This show is packed with great information. So there's lots to celebrate. At AARP, we picked the slogan, Estamos entrelazados. We are interwoven, if you will. And we have contributed so much from agriculture, the mines, the construction, the military services in general, education, teachers, board members, principals, administrators, counselors in government, city councils, mayors, board of supervisors, governors, judges, attorney generals, businesses, nonprofits, churches, entertainment, sports, and how about family values, happiness, and so much more that we contribute. Estamos entrelazados in the tapestry of this country. Thank you so very much to each one of you. We have just done an amazing show. It's packed with good stuff. And I just want to open up 2 seconds, 10 seconds, anything for if anybody wants to say just one more thing before we close.
I'd like to say something. Everyone talks about the importance of understanding the history. And I'm working on a documentary series called Arizona's Mexican Heritage, an American Story. And we've completed 3 episodes so far. And we're going to start releasing those on a serial basis this coming week. So I just want to let you know that we're working on that. And every time I look at that, I keep on remembering what they tried to do in Tucson to make sure people don't know their history, which to me is craziness.
Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you. This is just an amazing show. I was telling Alex and my family that I really hope that this celebration year after year becomes solidified, I think we need to and kind of connect it. So thank you to Frank Barrios, Julie Gallego, Dr. P. Dimas, Alex Juarez, Raul Aguirre. Thank you so very much. This concludes our show, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you so very much. Enjoy Hispanic Heritage Month.
And don't forget, que viva la raza.
Que viva la raza.
Arizona Hispanic Connection.